Welcome back to the Insurgent Mindset. I'm Matt Tice. This is a podcast about challenger thinking in a world shaped by disruption. In each episode, we explore the strategies and leadership mindsets that help businesses break from the pack and stay ahead in fast-changing markets. You'll hear conversations, case studies, and insights from leaders who are applying these mindsets to thrive in this uncertain environment. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And check out our companion blogs at insurgentsgroup.com for a summary of takeaways from each episode. Now, let's get into today's conversation. I'd like to introduce two colleagues of mine today who are going to talk about Make It Easy, an AI app. Sam and Jon Paior, who are both friends of Insurgents, but also really interesting people with a great story to tell. So welcome, both of you. I'm really excited to have you on today.
Pretty cool to be here. Thanks, Matt.
So
Yeah.
we first met a couple of years ago, and you're siblings, so that's really interesting as part of the story.
And we haven't killed each other yet.
You haven't
Not
killed
yet.
each other. And I think what's even more fun is that you're sort of kind of coming together to let's say mid-career to build an AI app, which is from my point of view, very interesting and exciting as we don't really have enough innovation in disability, and I'm really interested to hear more about it. I'm sure our listeners will find your story fascinating. So just as a kickoff, I might start with you, Sam. Tell us your story. What's your background, and how did you find yourself here in terms of developing this app and trying to bring this new capability to the world?
Sure. Long story, short story. What are we looking for today?
Go for the long story, Sam. It's good.
All right. Well, we are both the children of a special educator and a lawyer. And that's a lawyer who was very much into technology. So that kind of frames a lot for us, I think. And then my first son was born. I was living in Silicon Valley at the time, and my first son was born with Down syndrome. And that sort of changed my world. So I'd come from I had a degree, and I was working in public relations and doing all the fun things, and then had this kid that had a lot of extra needs. And through my journey and love of him and his friends, I ended up working in disability, which I had never done before. And that was a really interesting space to be in. So I moved back to Australia, and I set up a business called The Growing Space, and under the NDIS, we work doing what's called support coordination. It's a bit like, it's basically our team of social workers that support people with disabilities who are in the NDIS to use the funds and to build good lives for people with disability and their families.
Now, Sam, just very briefly, just for our overseas listeners, NDIS may not be familiar to many people.
Yeah, it's quite groundbreaking, particularly having dealt with the systems in both the US and Australia. So the NDIS is the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and it's a scheme where people with significant disabilities across all of Australia are effectively assessed and assigned a budget, which is then somewhat flexible for them to use. However, it suits them. So we can employ whatever workers we want with those funds. There's lots of different things that we can do with those funds. It's very flexible, and it's a significant spend for our government, and it's a significant availability of funds for people with disability. I believe it's fairly well unmatched anywhere in the world.
Great. Sorry, I didn't mean to break your flow there on the introduction, but carry on. Yep.
Absolutely. So as it happened, I've been working in disability and absolutely loving this field and loving the people that I'm working with. And I've gotten to know so many people with intellectual disability through my son, who's a very charismatic character. Is that how you would describe him, Jon?
He certainly likes to be known that he's in the room.
That's right. He is a one of a kind. I call him my lorikeet. For your American listeners or overseas listeners, a lorikeet is a very bright Australian parrot, and he dresses accordingly. He will wear a red shirt and a green jacket and blue pants and purple shoes. So his hair is the same in stripes at the moment, actually. He's a very loud character. Anyway, through my time and love of Ben and of many of his amazing friends with intellectual disability, I just gained a real appreciation for this group of people that never would have been on my radar really before, even though I'm the daughter of a special education teacher. Just didn't see people as people in the way that I do now. And I was at a art gallery 2 years ago, I think it was. I was at an art gallery in Melbourne. It was a very spectacular art gallery, and I remember reading the sign. I remember reading the sign at one of the exhibits, and it said something like the poetic confluence of the rallying of the, I don't know, I cannot even remember it, but it was this extraordinary paragraph that I had to read 5 times. Now, I have ADHD as well, so I'm a bit bouncy, and admittedly, sometimes I do have to read things several times, but honestly, I couldn't get it into my head. And this was just at that time when the iPhone had introduced that where you could select words out of a photo. So I took a photo of it and I selected the words and I put it into my relatively newly downloaded ChatGPT app and said, "What the does this mean?" And it told me, and it changed. I had this moment. I was actually with another mother of a daughter with Down syndrome. And I turned to Kirsten and I said, "Oh my gosh, we have to put this in the hands of people with intellectual disability or low literacy. We have got to do this. We've got to make this accessible." And that was the birth of the idea that then sort of exploded. I think I went home 2 days later. I'd written up a 5-page sort of manifesto of what it was going to do and how it was going to work. Ran to Jon because he's the tech guru and business guru, because that's not me, and said, "Jon, we have to make this." So,
All right, that's a good segue to you, John. Then let's hear how the confluence of these stories comes together.
Yeah. Well, look, mine's somewhat more boring, but look, I started out thinking, always thinking I wanted to be in business, and I started out doing an an accounting degree. Got most of the way through that, and then just found it just too boring, and so I switched to IT, which some would say is more boring, but I found it fascinating, and I got really involved in community and really found my feet in community itself and making connections. I founded a networking group in both senses of the word, called Valhalla, and we used to organize these LAN parties with 300 plus kids in a room. We used to have to bring generators in and 3-phase power and power 300 computers, all LAN gaming, and so I learned a lot about managing personalities and large scale events and marketing and everything, and that was great. And then ended up found myself in business and started an IT company, and ran that for 15 years plus, and really focused on cybersecurity with that. Had a bit of a life-changing moment. My wife got cancer, which she's completely recovered from now, which is fantastic. But it was it was a moment for me to take stock. I exited the business, and really managed to take some time out of life and career and really focus on family, which was amazing. And around about that time, that's when Sam really started to get, the NDIS was really ramping up, and her business was going really well, but was having some growing pains. And Sam asked me to come on board and help her out with her business, and put a few systems and processes in. Sam had an app already for the growing space, but it was good to put a bit of direction around that app and build that. So, all the skills that I'd had from running businesses and IT and cybersecurity were put to good use. And so we built up Growing Space, and it's a fantastic business. Does amazing things for their clients and the community as a whole, which is great. I'm really, really proud of Sam and what she's achieved there. And yeah, look, Sam always comes up with these, I'm going to say harebrained schemes and ideas, which is great. And most of the time it's like, yeah, Sam, that's a great idea, we should put that over there, and we should maybe talk about that a little bit later, and file it in the round filing cabinet. But this time, you know, AI was really you know, the buzzword with everything and everyone, and I could see the real potential there. I was using ChatGPT for everything myself, and really saw the potential. And this was one of those great ideas that just, yep, Sam, let's run with this. And you know, I spoke, you know, thanks to my contacts, you know, knew who to go to start developing the app and getting it built, and we we got it built, and you know, it's still improving, and still you know, we're still adding new features, which is fantastic.
Okay, so great. So that brings us up to today then. So I think it's really inspiring to see both of you both working together. It's sort of, again, mid-career. But I also think, there's this perception that these AI startups are for young people in their 20s in a basement. So, give me a sense of like, as you're charting this thing out, what are some of the trepidations or challenges that you were worried about as you're just getting started, or was it the other way around? You're just like, hell for leather, let's do it, whatever it takes, who cares? Just what was your mindset at the beginning? I'm really curious about that. Sam?
I think health for leather is probably a better descriptor. I wanted this done. I was at a place where even if I had to pay for it out of pocket entirely forever, I was going to do this. So it was going to happen. I just, the power of that information in the hands of people with low literacy. And then as we started thinking about it and realizing all the different other applications for it, it became, well, I guess a no-brainer. It was just, yeah, we're doing this. This is happening.
Okay, and do you think sort of having started and run a successful business and kind of having the maturity to look forward, that was a help or a hindrance in terms of having, as John pointed out, sort of a queue of ideas that perhaps you hadn't brought to fruition in the past, and here we are with this one, got to make this one work?
Uh, I think it was a huge bonus, huge bonus. Like right now, the last couple of days, I've been preparing for a registration audit with the NDIS, with the government. And it's just so easy to do it now because I've got this big context of business and process that I've learnt from Jon. He's been an incredible teacher on process development. And it's just made everything so much smoother, I think. And it's kind of cool, isn't it? I don't know if Jon feels this way, but I was thinking about this last night that in this business, I've been able to put into practice all the things that I wish I'd done from the start with the other business. Because it's very hard to wind
Absolutely.
back.
Yep.
But with this business, we're actually setting things up the way we want it, the way that, I mean, I'm sure we'll look back in 5 years and go, I wish we'd done a few things differently. But really, right now, I'm looking at it all and going, oh, we're doing this properly. This is awesome.
Mm, very good. And so then, I guess, John, flipping to you for a second, one of the things we really like to kind of bring forward in the podcast, especially, is just to remind people to focus on their end market and get really close to the customer. So can you give us a sense of how, your end user and the use case that you built around that end user sort of guides your thinking day to day and all the way through to how you think about development? Because clearly, getting this right for this particular community is almost high stakes, isn't it? Because people's lives really are on the line, making sure that they can understand their world around them in some ways.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I think the one of Sam's key strengths is empathy, and you know, she works with people and really bonds and builds that connection. And so and I personally don't necessarily always have the patience, but Sam does, and I'm really proud of her for that. And so, I can see the way that she connects with people, and goes, well, if I was that person, what is it that I would want? What is it that I would need? And then builds that connection back to herself and says, well, okay, this is the if I was in this situation, this is what I need, and then relates it to her own life experience as well. Both Sam and I do have some disabilities, and so it does make it easier for us to connect with other people and relate to them, and that's it really, again, how do we build it back? How do we feel a connection to the end user themselves, and what's going to help them? For me, the first time that I really got to use Make It Easy in Anger was when I was in Germany. And, being obviously very low literacy German, it was very, very useful for me to be able to put myself in that another person's shoes, going, well, I can't understand the things that are around me. I can't understand the world around me the way that other people, native German speakers can. And I was really able to feel the benefits of the app and having it so accessible and so easy, and really reduce some of the cognitive load when you're traveling in that stressful situation. And then translate that back to, well, what would that be like if I was, had some sort of cognitive dysfunction, or intellectual disability, and English wasn't my, I didn't have the English literacy that I do. And so, yeah, it made it easier for me to understand that. And watching Sam interact with others has been a real inspiration for that as well.
Now, you also have a community around you, which plays a role in almost co-design of this of the app and getting feedback on use cases and things like that. What are some of the learnings that you've taken out of that process in terms of, Jon, you mentioned I'm overseas, I'm in Germany, I can't understand the language. How do I navigate that? What are some of the use cases if you're looking at this through the eyes of your community that really sing out as, primary opportunities to, it's almost like a decoder ring for individuals, isn't it? Right. So it's that sort of mythical thing that
Yeah.
you're able to sort of bring to light. What are the use cases?
Well, Sam's probably better to answer that question, I think, because she's really does work with people. We've taken it to expos, and Sam's got a video, for example, that she loves of just showing people the app for the first time. Sam, did you want to talk about the video?
Yeah, happy to do that. There's two things I'd love to mention here. One was the first time I showed it to my friend Brooke. I'm on a government committee for people with disability and without, about improving the NDIS. And one of the young ladies, well, she's not that young. Anyway, Brooke is a woman with intellectual disability. And the first time I showed it to her, she'd written notes from the meeting, but they were all handwritten and scrawly, and it was difficult for her to sort of process and understand what she'd done there. And the first time I showed her the app, she actually burst into tears. And she just reached over and she was hugging me and she was just so excited about it all. And that makes my heart absolutely sing that she's now got access to that information, because the app, it doesn't just simplify what's happening in the world. It reads it out to you. So you don't have to have the literacy. You don't have to have any literacy to use this app to process the written world around you. Or the visual world as well. We have quite a few people with vision impairment using it because it will describe what's in that environment as well. But the other story that I wanted to tell was Zach, who actually wanted to join us this morning, but he's been unwell. So he's another young man with intellectual disability. And Zach used it last week. He said it was the middle of the night. He didn't have a support worker at home. And he wanted mac and cheese. And so he pulled out the mac and cheese box. And it's all written very sort of big and bold and stuff, but it doesn't make sense on the box. It's sort of in different places. It's in bubbles and whatever. And he pulled out his phone. He took a photo of the instructions, and then it read to him exactly what he needed to do to get it into the microwave and cook his own mac and cheese in the middle of the night. Now, these are really simple things that we all take for granted, that we can get up and go and make ourselves something yummy in the middle of the night, or something disgusting. But for so many people without literacy, it's not an option for them. So I just I don't know, it made my heart sing when Zach was explaining that the other day. You felt like that too, John?
Yeah, it's a great story, and there's so many of these stories
Yeah,
that
thousands.
we hear all the time. I think that's going to be a central pillar of our community is sharing these stories as well, and that's what I think we've done really well with our socials, our Facebook groups, and engaging the community there, and sharing these stories of interactions and how how we can improve people's lives by the use of technology and AI, which has always been the goal.
And I
And we're
suppose
also,
initial feedback has been terrific. You've gotten queued up for a number of awards already and lots of feedback from the community. Shifting gears, though, for a second, I think it'd be interesting to talk about the business. And, you know, it is a passion project, but it's also a business in a sense that your goal, as I understand it, is to take this capability to people with disability around the world. So talk to us a little bit about where you're at in in this phase of the business. Where do you take it next, and how do you get it to scale? John, we'll start with you.
Okay. So look, I think for me, it's not necessarily knowing having the right hammer. It's knowing where to hit the tool, and connections, making sure that we've got the right team to help us with this. So the developers, making sure that we've got the right developers to be able to continuously improve the application, um, getting the app up onto the Google Play and Apple stores has been um, it was a challenge that I really didn't expect it to be so hard, I suppose, and managing the expectations that Apple and Google have and navigating that minefield. Um, in terms of the marketing plan, look, we are incredibly blessed. Sam's just been, um, the whole last 10 years of her life has been about building her own personal profile and brand within the disability community. I'll let her talk a little bit more about that, but it's very easy to be able to leverage that community to get that exposure. Um, but again, from my perspective, I've always been a product person. I think if the product's good, it sells itself, and that's always been my fundamental, philosophy. Build it, and they will come, and that's where I feel like I can focus very much on the product and making sure the product is right and is accessible and is usable, and put it in people's hands. And Sam can go about what she does best, which is making sure that people know about it.
The dream team. Um, and then, okay, so Sam, from your point of view, how do you get the message out, right? And what do you do to create engagement sort of here in Australia and then internationally over time? And importantly, I suppose it's in this particular case, it's almost a 50-50 for purpose and for profit. So finding that balance has to be really important as well. Can you comment on that?
yeah, it's actually been a little bit of a struggle in the business thinking about because it's been so important to me that this is actually available to people with low literacy, with intellectual disability, and I didn't want cost or anything else to be a barrier for that. So I think we've come to a really good midpoint where people can use the app at a minimal emergency level without a subscription, and they can do that sort of forever because that was really important to me that the power of this was in those hands. But what it's done is it made us focus on other markets and think about where else and how else is this app going to be really valuable. And I think the aged care sector is a huge opportunity for us. And I think there's been lots of little ideas that we've not explored deeply yet. But I imagine this in the hands of travelers in general. You don't have to have low literacy to be stuck in Germany or Japan and not know, when the next train is coming. Although I guess they come all the time in Japan and Germany. So, selling to travel insurance companies, for example, as part of your package, potentially you get access to the app. Thinking about all of those other opportunities around the world. I've forged quite a few relationships with disability-related organisations around the world. So those things are starting to branch out. I think I'm a slow burn relationship person in business. I'm not someone to go out there and do a hard sell. I want my background and my history and the depth and trust that I've built in our sector, which has all been built for real. I haven't manufactured it or designed it. It's just the way it is when you live that passion. I think that they will work for us exponentially. So we're in that sort of slow phase, but I think we're very close to the explosion happening.
The inflection point, as it were, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, very good. I mean, just speaking from my own experimentation with the app, I suppose gave it to my kids, and my son at university found it really helpful to reduce a lot of complexity and some quite complex material that he was being presented with, and he thought it was great. So you can imagine lots of different sort of applications. But meanwhile, I suppose AI is sort of mainstreaming, and there's an app for almost everything. And the big players like Google and Apple and so forth all have their own sort of spin on how to connect people. How do you how do you defend against the big guys or even the little guys who are doing something similar?
Quality and the user interface, and the fact that I've never seen very, very large companies cater specifically for people with intellectual disability, yet 44% of Australians, for example, have low literacy, and I don't see any businesses catering to them.
Hmm.
So it's
I think
an
what I
untapped
think
market.
what I've heard people describe it as, we're not trying to boil the ocean. We have this app that does one thing and it does it really, really well. And we've got a very, very targeted, specific demographic that we want to make this available to. And the big guys, they're going to want to be all things to all people. And if it's not worth their while, then they won't do it. And so I think because we're just so targeted, laser focused on doing what we do and nothing else. And we know and intrinsically involved with that community, I think we will have that edge. And for example, we identified the need before anyone else, and was able to action it and get it to market.
Okay, so that's great. We love a good value proposition
Yeah.
here on the Insurgent Mindset. So, a wrap up of, Sam's authenticity in the sector and, these relationships, the quality of the app, the razor sharp focus on the community, and, kind of almost an ethos as a business. I mean, Simon Sinek might call that the why, right? Which is very clear, sort of hearing you describe what you're trying to achieve and what it means for both you and the community. It's really quite a nice formula. And I agree, sort of, the Googles of the world, whilst they may have similar capability, it's really hard to replicate that kind of deep authenticity that, particularly in the sector. So that's terrific. And so now here you are on the verge of greatness. You're, as Sam pointed out, at the inflection point where you're starting to get traction. People are starting to become aware of the app. You're winning these awards. You're getting lots of engagement, which must be incredibly exciting. Now, I guess sort of this is the Insurgent Mindset podcast. So I think one thing that we try to get our guests to reflect on is, what have you learned and what could you share in terms of what you might have learned to help others and Sam, I think your experience, and Jon, your experience also in bigger companies and now working in a small one, I think is also quite interesting. What are some of the key learnings that you would share for other would-be entrepreneurs in mid-career looking to challenge in? And secondly, what have you noticed in terms of the contrast of this experience versus perhaps a more corporate kind of incumbent experience that you might have had in other organizations that you participated in? Sam in Silicon Valley, Jon, maybe, your company previously. Give us a sense of your takeouts.
I think I've never seen working in much larger organizations in Silicon Valley. Um, there are pockets of people that are really excited and mission driven and passionate, but it's not the same as what we've got with a little company. Like we are, we'll be online at 11:30 at night now and then, and it's not because we have to or because we think we're supposed to. It's because we want to. Like it's exciting. And I find myself sometimes of an evening. I'll cancel a social event that I'm kind of interested in, not because I don't want to go to it, but because I actually really want to work on this thing for my business and it's so exciting for me. So I think that's different. But in terms of how you get there as well, I think it's really important to have a good mentor and someone outside of yourself that can put a lens on things that says, nah, you gotta, I know that, for us, we've had that, a little bit of that push around the money because if it were purely up to me, I'd just be giving it all away. So, so it's been really good to have somebody, having people support and help externally with that stuff. Somebody to bounce things off of, really important.
You don't necessarily want to go on every journey by yourself, right? So I think being open to that capability, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And Jon, what about you? Sort of again, lessons that you'd like to share for others who are entering this sort of phase of their career?
Yeah, look, I think leveraging experience is the biggest one. Having built businesses in the past and knowing where the shortcuts are, and not sweating the small stuff, I suppose, is a big one. Um, the Not letting the perfect get in the way of the good. Speed to market is really, really important with this app and is really important with any startup, I suppose. And I suppose that's something that I've had to keep reminding myself and reminding Sam. We just need this done. We need it out there. We need the world to critique our baby, and get that real world feedback, and then we can go back and fix it. And that's something that I've had to remind myself constantly as well, that look, we just need it. We need it out there. We need it done, and we need to put this in the hands of people so that we can actually improve it and continue to nurture and develop the product as we go along.
I
And I
think,
suppose, yeah,
John, I was just going to say that, I think I had this vision of making this product and that would be it.
yeah,
What I'm realizing is that, what is it? I mean, even last night we had another update. It is such a process of continuous improvement. We are constantly improving it, putting in new features, making things work better and smoother for users.
Mm. Jon, you've said something. I'm going to coin a phrase here. Fast over fear was how I interpreted what you just said, right?
yes,
So
absolutely,
I really liked that sort of articulation of that concept of, let's just get it out there, get into the hands of people, get the feedback, and not worry too much about whether we have it perfect. We hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about that, but that's one of the best descriptions I've heard in terms of, I really like that fast over fear because, at the end of the day, you have to keep that momentum. Okay, great. So, where to from here, guys? What should we expect in the next 12, 24, 48 months from Make It Easy in the team?
Uh, you're going to have to expect John to rein me in because I have another idea uh, for sort of almost like a sister app or a brother app. I don't know, a sibling app. Um,
here we go.
but yes, here we go, says John. That's right. I think we can expect some global movement. I think we're going to be out there, and
And do you anticipate raising capital for growth, or are you going to continue to run the business on the proverbial oily rag?
so that's a really interesting one because it's not an experience that I've had. I've not done that before, and there's a probably a fairly tight element of control that I would like to have, and you lose a lot of control when you do that. But I can't imagine we wouldn't get to a point where that would be valuable.
Do you have
So
a moment, Sam, John? I recommend listening to Randall Macon, who featured on the podcast a few weeks ago, and his now famous "I Took a Crap at Sequoia" podcast. So, who talked about his experience in raising capital for his software company, and they're really quite illuminating. Okay, John, any final words before we wrap up?
Well, thanks for having us on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to share our journey and our story again. And look, we're really, really proud of what we've achieved, what we're doing, and look, we just need to spread the word, continue doing what we're doing with our socials, and get this into the hands of the people who need it the most. And that's our mission for the next 6 to 12 months, and wish us the best.
So, John, I do wish you the best, but since you're here, why don't you help our listeners understand how they can get a hold of the app and where to find it?
Yeah, so look, it's just makeiteasy.com.au. Jump on board. There's a link to the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, just on the front page. You can click the link, use your phone, it'll download the app, and you can set up a free forever subscription that allows you to have I think it's 10 snaps a month, that are completely free, and that'll help you understand what the app is and how it works, and hopefully people are interested enough to be able to sign up for a paid subscription and unlock some of the more powerful features that we've built into the app, like being able to ask a question and have that answered, or be able to upload from your camera photo gallery, not just take a photo in real time.
Very good, John. Thank you so much, Sam. John, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. Again, I'm Matt Tice from the Insurgent Mindset, and we'd encourage you to join us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again, Sam and John. Look forward to seeing you again and hearing an update in due course.
thanks so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.